Good evening and welcome on behalf of the New York Society Library. I'm Sarah Holliday, the library's head of events, and I'm just here briefly to welcome you, both those in person and those joining us online, and to say a word of thanks to the Recording Academy for making this event possible as part of their New York chapter Day of Service. It's an honor to be working with you and an honor to have with us tonight singer Zachary James, winner of a 2022 Grammy Award, and composer Kristin Hevner, whose new opera, based on Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, is up for Grammy Award consideration right now. And I will now hand the stage over to them. Enjoy.
Hello, good evening, and thank you so much for having us. Thank you to the Recording Academy. This is Kristin Hevner, composer. So we just want to tell you a little bit about this piece, and then we have a little mini documentary to show you. And then for the first time ever, I'm going to sing some of this in person. This started as a pandemic project in 2020, yes. Around Halloween. So basically 2 years ago now. And this was kind of born out of many things, but we had a Carnegie Hall solo recital scheduled. And this recital was going to be all works by female composers in the classical music industry, which sounds a little antiquated. I hate having to say this, but for example, the Metropolitan Opera, which I love and I worked there, but they've produced 2 operas written by women since 1903. So it's a problem in the classical music industry, as Kristin can tell you. And I got into opera by way of Kristin Hevner. The first opera I ever did was written by her. And I was coming from the musical theater world, where we don't think about the composers as much. And Kristin wrote this new opera, and we went to Italy together and did it there. And that's how I was introduced to opera. So I didn't, a lot of opera singers are introduced to opera through Mozart and Donizetti and Verdi, but I met opera through Kristin. And we've been collaborating since 2004 now, a very long time. And you've written many things through my voice. And we have this way of working together that doesn't really require speaking even. Yeah, it's a telepathic communication. So I mentioned we were supposed to do a Carnegie Hall solo recital, and it was canceled, of course, with venue closures. And so I felt this burden of responsibility of what to do with all these works that were written for me by these incredible living composers. And at the time, Beyonce actually had just come out with a visual album, one of many, but the visual album, Black is King. And I'm sitting at home just watching this on repeat. And I thought, well, what if we made a visual album out of these classical music, contemporary classical music pieces that we were supposed to do at Carnegie Hall? And, I texted Kristin just joking, like, what if we just did Beyonce and put music videos out? And she was like, yeah, that's the move. So, yeah. So, there was kind of this beautiful creativity that was allowed by sitting at home in our homes without having to see people directly. You could kind of do things that you may not do otherwise, that you might be embarrassed to do even. And I just thought, let's do this, let's go for it. So me being naive and having never put out an album, I thought, well, yeah, I can record an album in 2 weeks and then we'll put it out. And I didn't really know that a lot of people take like 2 years to make an album. Yeah. And Kristin's Kristin's a composer, a pianist, a conductor, an orchestrator, a producer, and is part of Next Level Sound, which is this wonderful producing engineering organization, mixing and mastering albums for platinum artists and everything. And I'm like, hey, let's make this album really quick and we'll put it out next month. And you're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that, yeah. But we got to work, and the first thing that we created was The Raven. And this was an idea that I think it was 2018. We came up with this idea together to create a solo work of Poe's The Raven. And we kind of just put it on the shelf because we were so busy and didn't have time. And then we found ourselves with this luxurious amount of time. I bought a microphone on Amazon, and I set it up in my closet in my home. And just, we got to work recording. And you put a few notes down on paper, and I abandoned that. Yeah. She sent me a few notes and with a sentence attached to it from The Raven. And we both looked at it and just thought, this isn't us. This isn't how we work. And so we began this dialogue that started with voice memos, which actually, come to find out, a lot of pop artists work this way. where they just sing something into their phone, send it to somebody, and then that person takes it and rolls with it. So we started that, and you'd say, well, what if it was like this? Da, 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 da. And you'd send it to me, and then I would say, once upon a bit, that dreary, and I'd send it back. And we created an entire 21-minute opera this way. Me in the closet underneath the stairs in Philadelphia, and Kristin was in New York.
Midnight in the studio.
Downstairs. Yeah. Like, I'm homeschooling my child, but at 11 p.m. I can get to work on this. And so it was, affectionately a pandemic project. Fast forward, we're back in the world, and while we loved our recording, we really wanted to do a professional studio recording of this piece. So we got together in August of this year and created this studio recording, which is a much better quality and something that we can proudly put out in the world as not just a pandemic project. So we thought we'd start. We have a little 10-minute mini documentary of our time recording this in the studio. We thought we'd start with that today. We are here at Coop Recording Studios in Irvington, New York, re-recording our piece, The Raven.
Woo, Raven 2020, too.
We recorded, yes. Then the 70 bird beguiling. A studio recording of the piece, and we wanted to take you behind the scenes today to show you the recording process. My sad fancy and smiling. Bend the airwaves.
So this one's gonna kind of kick it up a little bit.
Make magic and touch people.
Same level as here. I think this is where it starts to build, but then maybe this is where it really peaks.
Yeah. Perched.
So we might do like listening to a verse and then going back and recording that.
And sat, and nothing more.
So we might go like piece by piece.
Totally. Then, all right, got it. That's where it is. That's the trick one. There's like 3, right?
Very piece by piece.
I would punch because I don't trust my memory to last 10 seconds. Though, yeah, sorry, those are tricky. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lighting that the lamplight gloated o'er. Should do that again, maybe. I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er.
We can listen to it tonight, and if there's any little punch-ins we want to make, we can do that, and then we'll just do the whole first half and the end for the bookends.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Back at the Coop for day 2.
Day 2.
Here we go.
Better we want than what we have, just a couple little redos.
Totally.
But kind of get everything first.
everything.
What I'm getting into now, and I'm like, I wish I did that when I did this, but part of the electronic game.
Cool. All right, we should be good for some sounds.
Yeah, so we'll put that at the top.
Once upon a midnight dreary. Can I stop there? Sorry. I thought that was the entrance, but it wasn't the entrance, but it was the entrance. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm going to turn myself down a little too and dive more into the story. Once upon a midnight dreary while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Distinctly I remember it was in the December.
Listen to the first line of that on
in a bleak December. From my books, surcease of sorrow.
Pause for one. Do you like the first one or the second one better?
I think the second one. What do you think?
Okay.
I don't know.
Second one. Yeah. Yep.
Back second one here.
I think so. Yeah. So we'll keep that whole second.
Distinctly. Quoth the raven, nevermore, nevermore, nevermore.
Do we hear the tick, that breath thing anymore? No.
No, it's less.
Less.
You can even hit it again if you wanted to. I just cleaned
I
up.
don't think I heard it.
That's good because it pulls back to go into the spoken passage. Yeah.
Yep. We'll pick up right there and just keep it rolling.
Okay. I wasn't delighted with my interpretation. Other friends have flown before. Yeah. Other friends have flown before. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore nevermore, nevermore, nevermore. Nevermore, 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 nevermore,
Yeah, I like that one.
nevermore. And the raven never flitting still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. How do you feel?
I feel really great. I'm going to do one last little listen through and just listen to the whole thing straight through, no stops, and see where we are.
I think we got it.
I think we got it.
Perched upon a bust of Pallas.
Kudos to us for not having to try to recreate something perfectly in that sense, allowing the art to grow a little bit.
Yeah.
Letting it have its own, you're not the same person when you're 15 and when you're 25.
And I'm now 25. She shall press on nevermore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Nevermore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we got it.
Wow.
Whew.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a spiritual.
That was
emotional
like
journey.
emotional. That was like
Yeah.
quite a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a brief overture, and as you listen to it, what we saw was a dark night, the snow blowing through bare trees and the moon and shadows, and this man kind of in a room similar to this, tormented. It's late at night, the fireplace is glowing, but the fire has long gone out, it's just embers, and he's tormented and turning to his books for comfort. Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, we thought we'd take questions about the piece, about the development of the piece and the composition, and any other questions you had upon hearing it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I haven't thought of Edgar Allan Poe or read him since high school. So I'm wondering, how was he in your consciousness? How did you decide to land on Edgar Allan Poe?
Well, you're a Philly girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah.
So I lived in Philly for several years myself, and actually walking through Philly, you can't help but be in direct contact with Poe, because there's so many Poe landmarks. And Poe's funny because many cities claim him. New York claims him, Philly claims him, Baltimore claims him. Yeah.
It's always been on the bucket list.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah, we're both also very dark people.
Yeah.
So, we're classical music kids. We both grew up playing classical piano, and that was something that really bonded us as artists, even though, you went into composition, I went into singing. So, we were the weird kids that were in our rooms and had pianos in our bedrooms, and we were playing Chopin and while other kids were outside playing. So it sort of makes sense to us.
It does.
Yeah.
Totally does.
Yeah. But, it's one of those things also, I think, I think many of our projects start as jokes, and then we do them.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah. But this one, we kind of, as soon as you turn a page and you realize, oh, this hasn't been musicalized, really. There isn't a stage adaptation of this. Why? And there are adaptations of Fall of the House of Usher, Telltale Heart, things like that. So, and we have some plans to bring to life a couple other of his works, and because we really want to pair this with other works and present it as a full stage show. And this being the first act.
Yeah.
So yeah, Poe. But he's, he lives within us all. He's such a icon. Interestingly, too, we both keep encountering Poe. I actually just did the voiceover for a claymation film about Poe because of this. A claymation filmmaker saw it and asked me to voice Poe. So it's kind of been haunting me. And your son right now is doing a Poe piece in choir at school.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So,
It's just all around.
yeah. Other questions?
Not a question, a comment. Wow,
Oh.
that was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. It's very nerve-wracking for me to do it live for the first time. It's
Yeah, it's been our little thing.
private.
Yeah, it's been so private.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to do it in an audience.
Yeah. We spent Halloween of 2020 recording,
Yeah.
from afar.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in the closet and I'm at home.
The dark.
And we just said, isn't this cool? Like, we're at home, but we're spending Halloween together, making music from across states.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such a great way to write, I think.
Yeah.
It's very freeing, just so different than anything we've ever done. I mean, you and I have, but just in the traditional way of how you would write something and hand it to a singer.
Right.
I think we just shattered that completely. Just the way we wrote it, the way it came out, and
Right.
it was a completely different process.
Well, if you look at the timeline of it, we got the idea and then 2 years went by
Yeah.
because we were thinking about the normal ways of creating things in the old world, the normal ways. And we were like, okay, well, we'll have to get together in the same place and let's find time in our schedules. What week works for you next
Right.
year? Maybe we can meet in New York and rent a studio and get a pianist and all these things. And then it's like, we kind of made it over the course of a month.
Yeah, I think that's what COVID sort of did. We had to, either you were not going to make any art or you had to rethink it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the fork in the road of
Right.
Are you just not going to write anything for 2 years? Are you
Which
gonna
is
do something?
okay. Yeah.
Totally. And I think we had that. We had started it and we were ready to do it.
Yeah.
And I think when it got taken away, I think we were just determined to not shelf the whole thing or
Yeah,
have it,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So it
It's true.
was fun to just think outside the box of how else we could get something done.
Right. And really, and no one really knows this because the world was shut down, but I quit. You know, but there was nothing to quit, so it didn't matter. But I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm quitting. That's the end. I've done everything I wanted to, and I'm gonna get a real job. You know, and I was just in my head. I was like, that's that. And this is the piece that really brought me. This is what brought me back. Yeah, truly. Yeah. And making that album, and then and it was really when the Carnegie Hall recital was the last thing to get knocked off the calendar. I was like,
That's a hard one.
that's that.
But you partially answered the question, but you're dreaming about staging.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more about
Yeah.
your dreams?
Yeah, sure. I think quite similar to the short film we made of the piece. It's one man in a room with a fireplace, and a bird apparition comes, and that's kind of the what we envision. It's obviously a hard thing to bring to life because there is a bird involved, but it was easier in film.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it would kind of lend itself to a surrealist kind of territory where you could have the Raven could be anything, and in our film, the Raven kind of parallels with the ghost of Lenore, who we see walking through and breezing through the window and things, and I think that would be
Being all in his head.
Yeah.
It can be in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And one of the other pieces that we want to bring to life involves a larger cast. So we will have these people sitting backstage with nothing to do during this one, theoretically. So we could get them on stage. You're the bird puppeteer. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. But it's one of those things I think we always used to rush our ideas, especially when we were in our 20s and we were putting on new operas in a warehouse space on West 52nd Street where there were pigeons and rats running through the theater. And it was a 100-seat audience, and we were doing all these really cool things and really expressing ourselves. And it didn't matter if it was a success or a failure. But those things all tended to be fast projects. And I think,
Very fast.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Now we're kind of like, okay, what about in 2025? We'll think about, I think we're a little more
Letting it
mature.
unfold.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're kind of seeking the right time and place, and which was, part of our plan with recording this in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting having some space from the first recording that we did during COVID.
Yeah.
To the real recording that we did in the studio.
Right.
That was sort of an interesting just gap of time to let it sort of settle.
Yeah. And let kind of bigger ideas come through.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Musically. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's fortunate. Usually you go in recording studios typically and you lay that down, and then that's what it is forever, and that's the cast recording, and that's the cast recording for the next 50 years. Or, things just stay there. So it was kind of an interesting process to kind of be able to go back and record it in a different way.
Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
So in New York, of course, we're kind of spoiled for opera and other musical theater arts. But at the same time, as you were kind of hinting earlier, the scene is kind of dominated by the Metropolitan Opera and a couple of the very large companies. So if one wants to hear more of this kind of thing live, who should we be paying attention to? Whose mailing list should we be on? What venues?
Yeah, I love that question. I would highly recommend that everyone get on the mailing list for the Prototype Festival by Beth Morrison Projects. It's a great festival that happens in New York every year, January, and there's so many new works presented, and many of them have legs and end up going all over the world. BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, is always doing interesting stuff.
And how about the Miller Theater of Columbia?
Yeah, Miller Theater. National Sawdust is another great one. Park Avenue Armory is always doing cool stuff with opera. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on, and I want to be super clear. I love the Met. When I got to New York, I went to the Met 4 times a week just to see everything I could. And I had a friend who worked there and could get me free tickets. So I was there almost every night, and I love working there. It's such an honor to be on that stage. But I think they know themselves that they have some amends to be made as far as representation, and they're making those efforts. Just this past season, they presented Terrence Blanchard's Fire Shut Up in My Bones, which is the first work that's been on that stage by a Black composer ever. It's 2022.
Yeah.
So, there's some work to be done.
Question for Kristin: do you think we're at the tipping point yet where we can just say you're a composer, or do we still have to say you're a female composer?
Yeah, that was always in college and graduate school. I hated having to enter competitions that said like, this is a competition for a female composer. I almost didn't enter them just for the sake of, it felt just so obnoxious to have to like separate us to, it was only female, which was great and it was very needed, but it also felt, it was a little double-sided. I think it's really, it's turning, it's changing. I think it's happening as we, it's happening before our eyes.
Because the Mets commissioned a piece by Missy
Mazzoli. Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, and I just premiered a piece last week by Paola Pristini in Minnesota, which was quite wonderful. And I've had this great fortune to work with, many, many living composers, most of them women, and it's been really my favorite experiences.
You've been a very big champion of all the composers.
I mean, it was shocking to find out statistics. Me coming, because I spent my 20s on Broadway doing musical theater, and then I kind of fell into opera, and I found out, what was going on, and it was shocking. And so, and we were kids and just like saying what we wanted to, and we would just, put out these radical statements about these statistics and just say, come see our thing this weekend. It's cool, And we were selling like canned beer for $1 in the lobby, and, getting people off the streets, like, come see this, it's an opera. Because that's, I do a lot of contemporary opera. It's my favorite thing to do. I love working with living composers. But beyond that, my favorite thing to do is to introduce people to opera, people that have never seen it before. You have the opportunity to say, hey, this is actually what it is, because there's a lot of stereotypes about it. Yeah. And the biggest ones are, it's expensive, you have to know the language, and I have to dress up. And those are paywalls, right? Or they're walls that people think they have to, okay, I have to save up to go to the opera and I have to get a gown, etc. But you don't, and the tradition of dressing up for the opera is a wonderful thing, but you don't have to. We prefer that you're there in whatever you have to wear, and get the $20 seat in the back, or enter for free tickets on Twitter. Like, just come see it.
Have it be accessible.
Yeah. I remember too, the first opera I ever saw was The Ring's Progress, Stravinsky, and I was so excited. And I said to the usher as I was walking in, like, this is the first opera I've ever seen. And he said, oh, no, this is not the first opera to see. It's terrible. But it really informed my taste in opera, in contemporary opera being what I like most, because it blew my mind. And Mozart's great, but I get bored to tears sitting through it, personally. No offense. Sorry, Mozart.
When you pick a popular piece, every year in Greenwich Village in a church, they do a dry reading of Poe's work.
Oh,
And it's fantastic, but yours is much
oh, thank you.
better.
Thank you. Well, I should say also, it's available. The full recording is streaming worldwide on all platforms and free on YouTube, etc. So keep it listening.
So I'm curious, a little bit of a self-interested question, but you've done both musical theater and opera. What do you see as the difference between an opera and a musical, especially contemporary works?
Yeah, I love that question. That question came up in college because and my teacher said it's whatever the composer calls it, and I love that because it's really, there's great freedom in that. And Kurt Weill, Seven Deadly Sins, if you know that work, that's called a ballet, but it's really not a ballet. It's just like a woman speaking and a quartet of men singing, but he just wants to call it a ballet, so it's a ballet. So I think it's really up to the composer how they envision it. I ask that question of a lot of people because I'm curious for their responses, and a lot of people will say, well, an opera is unamplified, but that's not true anymore. Like, I do a lot of Philip Glass, and Philip Glass is often amplified because there's a lot of spoken word passages. But I don't know, What's your definition? What's the difference?
I don't know, I think, I don't know, I think things are breaking down a little bit. I think they're less, you know, you can talk, you can't talk. I think that a lot of that stuff, you know, is sort of going to the wayside.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of it had to do with, you know, it was all singing or not all singing, or you could talk. I think a lot of that had to do with it. I think now you're seeing it everywhere. So I think it's breaking down a little bit. I think there are less strict rules at this point.
A lot of people say like, oh, a musical can have spoken dialogue, but like Magic Flute has so much spoken dialogue.
Yeah.
And
it was sort of like deemed as a no-no in opera for so long.
Right.
They didn't, you know.
Right. And you know, some operas have played Broadway. I mean, the Baz Luhrmann Bohème, but also there was a time when Menotti had all his operas on Broadway, and that was a cool time. The Medium and and Kurt Weill, of course, had operas playing Broadway. So
Porgy and Bess.
Porgy and Bess.
That's a great
Yeah. Very, very good. So yeah, I don't know anymore. I think it's good that the walls are coming down, and I think it's good that there are artists that are doing both. Like Kelly O'Hara is a great example, a Tony-winning Broadway actress who's also appearing at the Met now regularly, not just in The Merry Widow, but in Così fan tutte, you know, premiering in the Hours this season. So I think that's a really exciting thing. So just thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.